Go to my website, tuesdaymaythomas.com, sign up and receive your free book, The Higher Self, Blueprint of Mastery. And that way you will be subscribed to my monthly love letter. I send out 1 or 2 every month, and I look forward to keeping in touch with you. Blessings, everyone. This is Tuesday May Thomas, and I'm really grateful to be sharing this time with you here. This is our second video in the Trinary series, where I'm going to help us to understand and bridge the gap between binary and trinary consciousness. If we imagine binary consciousness being the aspect of duality, the realm where duality exists, that being the choices, the thoughts, the feelings we have that we label as right and wrong, as good or bad, or that operate on the tangents of love and fear. This is our binary system: yes, no, on, off, right and wrong. And it offers us 2 variables for the most part, right? Where we're moving to, if we shall be guided, is into a trinary level of consciousness where there is a third option, where there is another path and another way for us to choose, instead of what we've been brought up with, what we've learned, and what we've been taught as being the only 2 options. Buddhism demonstrates this in the meditating and attaining a conscious pathway of what they call the middle path. And it's living that and embodying that, and really not choosing left or right, yes or no, but to rather embody neither. A wonderful lecturer that I really admire and appreciate, and who's such a great teacher, Santos Bonacci, you can find him all over YouTube. He did this great interview, and it blew my mind, and maybe you've heard of this before, but it was for me the first time last year when I heard this, when he was talking about that movie, The Matrix, and, Neo gets the option, the blue pill or the red pill. And, well, what about neither pill? And that's what Trinary is offering us. It's inviting us into a realm of moving beyond that which we've been taught and told, and what we believe are the only options of operating in this world and in this body. And it's actually very liberating. If those teachings are new, then it can be quite scary to think that there could be more than what abides quite simply here and now, in that beyond the 5 senses, so to speak. There are many teachings that help us to come into a realization and an awareness that help us to realize that we are more than just a body. I love A Course in Miracles. There's a prayer and an affirmation that just says, I am not a body. Like, just period, I am not a body. And you know, in the 3D world, in the binary world, it's like, what? Are you joking me? I'm totally a body. That's what I inhabit. And in social circles in our cultures and media, newspapers, magazines, we're taught that we are very much a body. And believe me, I love feeling fit, and I love feeling a sense of that I'm practicing good health and wellness for my body temple. Yet, I've come to a realization that indeed we are more than just this physical aspect. In fact, we are multidimensional beings. We exist not only in this dimension, the world of 3D, but we also exist infinitely throughout all the dimensions you could ever imagine exist. Mind, body, emotions, and spirit. We are multidimensional beings, and in this world of binary consciousness, we are taught to really pay more attention to the physical aspect of our body, of our being rather, than the holistic approach, which is to consider all of those aspects together as a unified whole. So, and that's where a lot of our spiritual studies invite us, is to remember that we are indeed more than just a body. And as we remember that we are more than just a body, we remember that we have access to a source that is beyond this world. And that source is by the name that you would give it. Some call it source, some call it higher power, universe, God, the great creator, great spirit. There are many different names, Allah, Shekinah. There are many different names that people give this. They give this name to the source of where it is we all come from, where it is we go back to when we die, where it is we tap when we practice Reiki, where does that life force energy come from? Well, it comes from source. Source being that one, and that one, really, source being that one that is and contains everything and everyone, and is the source from which everyone and everything comes from. So that source is the place that we come from, is the place that we go back to, is the place that we receive life force energy from. And in the world of binary that we've been taught to live by, there is very little connection to that almighty source. As we plug into that almighty source, we begin to realize we are connected to a power that is beyond this world. And Trinary Consciousness is a peek into, is a pathway into realizing that, into recognizing that. So what is Trinary? Trinary is, in this terms of Trinary Consciousness is you operating from a place of unity consciousness. You operating from a place that is either residing, existing, and embodying consciousness that radiates from the heart center, or that you are en route, that you are consciously en route to attaining that. Some call this enlightenment, some call it Christ consciousness, right? But either way, it is the path from the third chakra energetically to the heart center. I want to share a diagram with you. So, and these are all going to be things that are coming up in my upcoming books. I will have a connection to my books in the description box, some links for my books in the description box. And I'm working on a book called The Chakras and the Energy Vehicle We Inhabit. And here's a person, and notice they have a crystalline tube running up and down their spine, and the traditional 7 chakras running up and down. Well, in the teachings that I share, and that I've learned from my teacher, from my Grand Reiki Master, it is said that along this tube, there are bridges of energy from the first to the second to the third to the fourth, and from the fourth all the way up to the crown. And the way I see energy in the aura is in circles, is in spirals and in circles, and maybe you see that too. We go from the first, second, and third chakra of just number one, we feel a sense of belonging here on the earth plane. Number 2, we know how to thrive and not just survive. Now, whether we're living in survival mode or not, it doesn't matter, because perhaps that's where you're choosing to be, but you're aware of it. You're aware that you could do more to assist and serve yourself in thriving, but perhaps you're choosing not to take that path at this time. Now, also, when we move up, that third chakra is about really embodying your personal power in the world. So once we've attained just these really basic levels, and there's so much more to it, but just to give you an idea, once we've attained a certain level of mastery in belonging here, not suffering at the hands of depression, really accepting and allowing that you're in a body on a planet called Earth right now. Once you're cool with that, and you've gotten through surviving. All of us are survivors on some level or another, and we all have a history, we all have a past, and we've all survived, right? And so whether we're deciding to survive or thrive now, right, there's a conscious level of where we're at and how we're exemplifying those teachings that we've come through in our life. And then again, that third chakra coming into a certain sense of self-mastery and embodying that in the world, not being afraid to have the courage to embody that in the world. And so that's where, once we have those 3 aspects mastered, right, or we are en route to really working towards those levels of embodiment with sincerity and with integrity. We show up, we do our practice, we're working our healing realms, we're present. We're being the kindest individual we can to ourselves and to others. All those beautiful things. What happens is it's like, okay, now all that 3D, that basic stuff is taken care of. So now the energy within us can begin to rise up to the heart chakra. And so once those first 3 chakras are taken care of, we can, and we naturally do, begin to walk and move in a different realm, and that different realm is trinary. See, what I get to do, I am a heaven on earth ambassador, by the way. I was just told by Great Source, by God, last year, that I could indeed embody this title if I'd wanted. And it doesn't mean anything. You could be a heaven on earth ambassador. We can all be heaven on earth ambassadors, right? It's just what you choose. It chose me and invited me, and I said yes. And honestly, again, that was through learning the teachings of A Course in Miracles. And as I began to embody the teachings in A Course in Miracles and really let them be the change I wished to be in myself in the world, well, my whole life changed. And I really, truly began to realize that even though I had just been through some of the hardest things in my life, I had a fiance who attempted suicide. We lost everything we owned, we thought we owned in the world, and we had to start over. And this was probably the toughest thing I ever experienced in my whole life. And we all have our stories, right? Like I was saying earlier. And it was at this time, I think I was in my 2nd year of learning A Course in Miracles and studying it, and it just spoke to me. I realized that even amidst the heavy, the pain, the trauma, the serious trauma, and the healing that I was in, that my partner at that time was going through, there was still this silver lining. There was still this beautiful dimension of peace, of ease, of grace, that I inhabited, that inhabited me if I would allow it. And I was realizing that I, despite everything that I was going through, it actually cracked through the glass ceiling and welcomed me into a place of heaven on earth realization. And for some of us, and for a lot of us, to have a near-death situation or an illness, or for something really shocking, dramatic and traumatic to happen to us or to someone we love, someone very close to us, it pulls us to be more than we ever thought we could. And when we have those experiences, we do in fact realize that there's more than just this world. There's more than just social media. There's more than just having a nice car and a nice house. And believe me, I'm praying for a new car, so I'm all about that. Yet, without having a peaceful within and an authentic, integral sense of connection to your heart space, all the new cars in the world, all the followers on YouTube, on Facebook or whatever, really don't mean a thing. So, I want to show you the next part of this little diagram, so you can see where these bridges meet. They go up. So what I'm talking about is we are moving from the solar plexus to the heart center. And now for some of us, and you see the Merkaba is there as well, and this is just a very rough draft sketch that I was doing for the book, and it'll be perfected over time. But the idea is that we are moving into this realm, and what I get to embody, what I've chosen to embody as a Heaven on Earth ambassador and an author, is a bringer of a new language that might be an old language that we've forgotten. But we're moving into new realms in this world, in this lifetime, no matter how old you are. If you're guided to watch this, there's something here for you. And my intention, my work, the gift that I love sharing is beginning to embroider these new words, these new concepts into the fabric of our conversations, into the fabric of the matrix that we live in, into the realm of consciousness as we know it. And I'm going to speak a little bit about the grid as we get on here. But I did want to read something. So I mentioned the Merkaba There's an amazing teacher, Drunvalo Melchizedek, and I'll see if I can find his YouTube. I'll find some kind of a link and I'll put it down in the description box. The very first time I did the Merkaba meditation, it must have been in 2000, and with my Grand Reiki Master when I was apprenticing with her. And it was deeply transformative, and as soon as I learned it off by heart, I've been doing it almost daily as a practice. There have definitely been times where I haven't felt guided to do it, but it has been for 17 years now such a powerful stabilizer in my life. It puts you in a space of activating the energy vehicle that resides in the invisible realms. That is all your chakras, your crystalline tube, and the Merkaba itself, which is 3 tetrahedron, right? And 2 of them spinning in counter rotation at to the highest degree, to 9/10 the speed of light that they can. And when these tetrahedrons are run to that greatest degree, that is you embodying the highest heart space, the highest Christ consciousness, if you will, the highest unity consciousness that you can at any given time and space. And when those tetrahedrons are operating in such a way, only that which matches it, only that which is love, that highest degree of love, can enter into your field. And of course, that is what you are sending out. So anything else that maybe seems not of that energy, not of that frequency, can't even touch you, can't even get in to those spinning tetrahedrons. And there's going to be so much more on that. You know, I used to have a very popular guided Merkaba meditation video up on my YouTube, and I took it down for personal reasons, and I'm going to be recasting one here soon. I do have a recorded version. So if you do know your Merkaba meditation, you know the finger movements, the eye movements, and all that good stuff, I'll put, again, another link. I'll put a whole bunch of links down in the description box so you can go to my SoundCloud and listen to it and do the Merkaba meditation if you already know it. Otherwise, I will be posting one hopefully before the new year, and in the new year I look forward to having a little online class so you can learn more about it through my website. All of that said, there is an amazing quote by Drunvalo that I have here, and it speaks to Trinary, so I'm going to read it to you. We are interpreting the one reality through an instrument that is polarized, the brain. It has a left and a right side, and it sees everything as either good or bad. Yet, when the brain has the experience of seeing for certain that there is only one function, one thought moving through everything, it does this funny thing. The corpus callosum, that which links the left and right side together, it is the gateway between the left and right side of the brain. It begins to open up, and enlightenment activates. Enlightenment begins. Enlightenment means moving out of a duality consciousness and into unity consciousness. You begin to realize that every one of us are linked in ways that the world right now has forgotten. It's where you begin to see the unity of all life everywhere. I have to let the cat in. So what Drunvalo is saying, in my interpretation, is that when we meditate, when we do our practices, and especially the Merkaba meditation, what happens is that corpus callosum, that area that is the gateway between the left and right sides, the dual vision, the duality of this world, that gateway opens, and the left and the right merge. And when the left and the right merge, there is no more duality, because one becomes the other and the other becomes that other one. And so there is this divine intercorrelation, interpenetration, interrelatedness, interconnectedness between both. And I recently heard a wonderful interview by Bruce Lipton, and I don't want to quote it because I can't. I didn't take notes. But he was basically saying, he was speaking about how when we in fact cross our arms or cross our ankles or our legs, even though many body language people would say, oh, they're defensive or they're closing up, biomechanically, what he has proven is that this is actually an unconscious way that we cross the sides of the brain. And maybe it's because there's an unconscious knowing that perhaps we are under stress, or there is some factor going on in our environment or in our situation that's making us uncomfortable. And perhaps the body language aspect is true. It's being a little bit guarded, but at the same time, it's also unconsciously sort of trying to connect the left and the right to verge towards a trinary realm of understanding ourselves and our environments. So, what I want to talk to you again about is the trinary, and is understanding this new language, understanding what it is. So, just a little recap. When we enter the world of the trinary, we are first moving into a space of one, which means one is unity consciousness, one is moving out of polarized duality consciousness, which is ultimately non-judgment, to be in a place of non-judgment in the world, right? In the presence of ourselves, all people, places, and things. And it's actually possible. It's not as hard as you think, as we think, as the collective perhaps proposes it is. It's actually quite easy. There have been millions and millions and millions and millions of beings before us who have been holding space and opening the gateways so that us now really don't have to work that hard to attain these capabilities, to be able to be in the world and not of it. And that's where we're going. We're moving into 4D. Now, I know there's so many teachings on YouTube, in books, everywhere, talking about 4D, 5D, and they're skipping 4D. They're just going to 5D. And I'm thinking, well, I get a different download about that. But ultimately, you, as the viewer, what I invite you to do, what I do, is as I'm guided to perhaps read a book or watch someone's YouTube or whatever it is, to attain information and to educate myself, is I'll feel what resonates like truth for me, because ultimately that's all that matters, right? My one of my catchphrases is "as it is for those who believe." So whatever it is that you believe, that you know to be the truth for you, that's what's going to be the truth for you. If you believe that when you die, you go into a tunnel of light, and then you meet all your old pets that have passed, and your great-grandmother and your auntie, whoever it is, then that's what's going to happen for you. If you believe that if you're bad, you go to hell, well, that's what's going to happen to you. I feel that life is an adventure book, and even the afterlife is an adventure book. We make it up. And it's individual curriculum. I love that Marianne Williamson says we each have an individualized curriculum. But even beyond that, metaphysically, it is an individualized curriculum that we're choosing constantly. Am I going to take the red pill, the blue pill? Am I going to choose neither? And that was another cool thing that Santos Bonacci talked about. He talked about, and that I had never realized either, and maybe you already know it, but that Neo, you spin those letters around, and it's one. He really is the one. But also, coming back to trinary, one, we must attain a oneness within, and that is really compassion. That is really loving the self first and foremost, and practicing what that means to you. Practicing self-healing, self-love. It's so funny, I have a friend, a dear friend, who last year he was like, "I'm so excited. That's it. I totally decided I'm gonna heal my life." He's like, woo! He's like all juiced up. I talked to him like 3 or 4 months later. I'm like, "How's it going?" He's like, "Oh my God, this is like the hardest thing in the world." You know, he was like near tears. He said, "I thought I was just going to be running through a field of lavender. You know, like it would just be like easy peasy lemon squeezy." He's like, "This is hard." And I was like, well, that's it. You know, this is entering the realm of pure white light, means the exercising of the darkness that we think is real, that's been stealing our time and space, and really driving for us. And maybe that's not for all of us, but for me, I was a victim. I had, as we all do, several different experiences in my childhood which marked me for my whole life, for 40 years. And it's only been since I turned 40 and beyond that now that I'm like heaven on earth, because I have exorcised those demons. I've released those tars. And we're going to talk all about this again. This is this new language to understand what we're processing, to understand our spiritual sensitivity, to understand our process of life and death, of rebirth, of sometimes wanting to really be excited and be here in the world and sometimes wanting to leave. I know I have wanted to leave several times. I'm going to put a link for my book. It's a free book called The Nowosphere. I'll put a link again down in the description box. It's free on iBooks. It's free on Kindle. And it's for empaths. It's for sensitives. It's for addicts. It's for anyone on the path of spiritual growth, the unnerving path of spiritual growth. Again, like my friend thought, he's just going to decide to become spiritual and heal his life, and he would just be running through fields of lavender and just sprinkling fairy dust over him. And he's like, this is really hard. You know, this is making me go so much deeper than I ever thought I was ever going to have to go. But that's where the power is. And that's where your personal power is. And your initiation is into turning your pain into power. And only you can do that for yourself. And that's why it is empowering. So, furthermore, I'm very guided to give a brief lowdown of the grid, just to go further to help break us into this trinary consciousness realm. So earlier I was speaking about duality consciousness, binary consciousness, which that's what it is. Binary consciousness is how the world operates. It is the matrix. It is the red pill or the blue pill. It's basically like you have two, Republicans or Democrats, which is very Western. I know in many other countries they have 20 or 30 parties, depending. So this is very Western when I give that example. But it is an example all the same, that we have this limited choice. And because we have limited choices, then we begin to think in limited ways. And all of this limited thinking that's either this way or this way gives rise to binary consciousness. So every thought we think casts out a thread of energy. Okay? So this is actually a picture of me. It's my profile. And if you see these lines of energy, we're going to call them grids. These grid lines are threads of consciousness. Every thought that I think, every emotion I feel, every word that I speak, every energy that I acknowledge and accept and give permission to be real and true in my world, that passes through me and I send back out, moves in this way. It moves into me and through me. As those energy lines extend out from me, they connect with a greater strata. Now, this is the grid. This is the matrix. Imagine that's the matrix. There it is, all right there in one little picture. This is collective consciousness. This is binary. This is what we're told is all there is, either left or right, yes or no, and we've been taught to think in a certain way which keeps us bound into the matrix. Now, if you practice yoga, pranayama, Reiki, healing modalities, you've even traveled and you've experienced different cultures and you are aware of a very different way of experiencing life, you begin to learn that there's more than binary. And maybe you didn't have a term for it. Maybe we would just call it higher consciousness or collective consciousness, unity consciousness. You know, we start to get these new agey terms. And if you have a better term than new age or new agey, please put it in the comments below. I've been looking for one, but for now it's fine because we all know what we're talking about. You know, it's spiritual. We begin to learn that again, we are more than just a body, that there is something very powerful and potent about having experiences from the heart and to the heart, which take us out of this binary system, out of this grid system. The grid is great. The grid is fine. It's what we have been brought up with. It's all of our initiation playing field. Yet, what I get to share with you is that there's more than the grid. But, and I really don't like using the word but, so instead I'll say and. The thing is, learning how to master the grid, that is, master your thoughts, master your word, master your actions and deeds, like Carlos Castaneda wrote, in so many of his books, to a fashion, speaking about impeccability, operating from such a space of impeccability. When I teach Reiki, I speak about living so deeply one's dharma, which is living so deeply from a compassionate, true place in one's heart that honors all beings and all things. That every action, word, and deed that comes from that place is living so deeply in harmony with that dharma that it literally does not create karma. So you begin to live out of time. The Mayans had a term for that. They had, I think there was a special day once a year, July 24th. Okay, I need to do my homework and remember and refresh about all that. But basically, that's off the subject, but maybe it's probably connected. But basically, we begin to collapse time and we begin to live and bridge heaven on earth, which is living in the heart center, which is 4D. So sure, skip ahead to 5D. Think about the throat chakra, 5D. Yet 5D without 4D awareness is not heaven on earth. Unless you are an ascended being, you've reincarnated here several times, and your karma is such that you can take the fast pass, you don't really have all that stuff to work through, then sure. And as it is for those who believe, and there's different paradigms for all of us, and I fully honor that, and I do not hold the cards for the whole fate of humanity by any means. I am one voice with a set of teachings that I am so beautifully and truly guided to share with all of my heart. And why do I share them? It's not to change the world. It's not to change anything. It's not to try to fix the world. I just share them because I can. I share them because it is what makes me happy and what I feel is truly what I get to do here while I'm alive, while I'm inhabiting this body and this being that is Tuesday. And that's heaven on earth. It speaks to the more that we live from that heart space, the more that we embody the truth in our hearts, little by little, in relationships, in family relationships, with our careers, with money, with integrity, right? With our bodies, with our intimacy, with our sex and sexuality, in the way that we communicate, in the way that we see. Are we judging everyone everywhere? Are we casting out reasons why we need to be afraid of people or fear them or project negativity in any direction or another? So as we begin to work through all these things that would usually keep us bound to the matrix and keep us bound to binary consciousness, well, all that webbing begins to clear. And as we learn to use our word, our thought, and our deed in a conscious way from that heart space, which really just happens naturally the more that you allow yourself to practice self-love, the more that you just allow in general. And these are all so many topics we could go on for a long time about. But I just really wanted to cover and skirt through a handful of aspects. So as we continue making these videos and having these conversations, there will be some kind of a foundation there for you. I'm really excited to launch my book, The Reiki Apprentice, on October 19th. Again, the link, I'll just have a whole bunch of links down there. And it's a memoir. It's my true story of everything I've been through, basically almost everything pretty much in my whole life, and how I learned how to turn my pain into power. I was bullied as a child. I was an obese child, dealt with weight issues my entire life. And I know that that was intimately linked with sexual abuse that I experienced when I was younger. And as I began to, through Reiki and applied metaphysics, now Trinary fits into that. And as we go further with metaphysical energy tools, this will all click a little bit more and more. But later, in my life, when I learned Reiki and became attuned and started learning to help heal myself in my life and those issues, coupled with applied metaphysics, well, my whole world changed. My whole world changed. Anyway, it's all documented, all of the energy tools, all of the information. I documented my 3-year apprenticeship with my Grand Reiki Master in New York. That's all in there. We go from when I'm a child through some of these traumatic experiences, and then we hop into New York when I meet this wonderful Grand Reiki master who's also a trans-channel healer, who channeled some amazing teachings that I am so guided now to share forth. It's time now. That was from 2000 to 2003. It's 2017 now, and it's finally time to pay it forward and not only share it in my books, but also to share it in these kinds of conversations. So please, if you have questions, put them in the comment box. I'd love to start a thread and a conversation. And look out for my little notification videos. I'm going to be going live soon, speaking about Reiki, metaphysics, multidimensional healing, and all of this type of conversation, which I'd be so grateful to have you tune in and write me in your questions, when it goes live. So I'll let you guys know, you guys and you girls, you men and you women, and everyone in between. So transgender, bisexuality, trinary. It's neither one nor the other, right? Sometimes a combination of both, or more, or less. It's beautiful. It's trinary. It's nature. All right, whether you agree with that or not, namaste. Blessings.